Hey guys, it is Katie from Moonflower Moments. So today I'm doing a video request, which is a walkthrough for the William Blake Tarot of the Creative Imagination. So this is my second favorite deck, the first one still being Tarot Botanical, which was the first deck that I ever owned. If y'all would like to see a walkthrough of that, just let me know. I'm happy to share, though that is a pip deck, so I think a lot of the interpretations are intuitive things that have been built by me across the years. William Blake is a hard deck to read from, I would definitely say. I don't think it's necessarily a beginner deck, but because all of the cards are illustrated, there's a little bit more for me to show you on camera in terms of where I'm getting my interpretations from. So I thought that I would show you the guidebook to start out. So this is the little guidebook. It's tiny, and I have the illuminated 3rd edition. Some of the older ones don't have the revised artwork. So here's the cover page if you want to freeze that so you can read it. Just flipping through it slowly in case you want to read it. Now on this page, this is important. So sorry, you'll have to excuse my not great handwriting. I wrote this for myself like over 3 years ago. So the suits did change, and you can actually see here that he quoted a quote by William Blake himself as to why he changed the suits. So it says, "I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I will not reason and compare. My business is to create." So he used that quote itself from William Blake to justify why I keep referring to him as Ed Burren, I think that's how you say his name, changed the suits. So the painting is the pentacles because it corresponds to the physical. The science is the swords, which is fine. That seems to make sense. It corresponds with the mental. The music corresponds with the emotional realm, so that's the cups, and then poetry corresponds with the spiritual realm, so that corresponds with the wands. So I'll explain that a little bit more later. We have a couple spreads at the beginning. I've never done any of these spreads, Celtic cross spread, so I don't have much to say about them. And then when you get to a sample guidebook entry, so for the majors, it has these beautiful little write-ups such as the Fool, innocence, something fresh and new on the horizon, a tangible risk that needs to be faced, trusting your instincts, a sense of adventure at hand, confronting unknown factors, dealing with folly or foolishness, expect the unexpected. But then for the minors, so remember I said earlier that music is the cup suit, it is the emotional suit, so I know it's weird that this image has fire. We'll get there in just a second. It has a write-up of what the card means, as well as it has in the creative process. So that's the primary way that I use this deck, is for creating creative endeavors, that it makes sense. For my creative projects is how I use it. And all of the minors have that. Okay, so that's the guidebook. She's skinny, but she's very useful. We might consult her a little bit later if I need further help interpreting a card. So I'm gonna go ahead and share with y'all first the suit that I think is the one that makes the most sense. So the science suit is the sword suit. Totally makes sense, right? I just feel like that makes sense. So this one did not switch, so I feel like it's the most self-explanatory. So I'll go ahead and show that one first. Okay, so we have the Ace of Swords here. So I did write a poem based off of this card previously. It is titled Intellect, and I noticed that this guy is writing down his interpretations, and I thought it was interesting that he's placed in front of a tombstone. So it really did remind me that your intellect and your creative endeavors last longer than your physical body, which I think is a really great affirmation for the Ace of Swords. Have clarity, speak what you need to speak, because your words will last longer than you in your physical form. So I think that's very intentional with this and placed in front of a tombstone. Reflection, 2 of Swords. So normally when we think about reflection, we think of like indecision, of trying to weigh the options. So I think the word reflection fits nicely into this. What I see is this boy and this dog, and they're waiting outside of this door. And it almost seems like to me that the best way to interpret these cards is by creating little stories with them. And that's actually how I taught myself to read with this deck. So to me, this boy and this dog are waiting outside of their parents' room, and this boy is hearing his family arguing. That's what I'm getting from like the darkness of this door. And based off of that argument, he's thinking about what he needs to do next. He also has his hands up here, almost as if he's begging for someone to create tranquility. So I think about the noise that's behind us that we oftentimes face in the Two of Swords when we're trying to weigh two decisions, right? There usually is noise behind us, and we have to try to find a path forward to escape from that additional noise. Okay, this is not my favorite of Three of Swords, but I like that it has the keyword jealousy instead, because typically when I read with Three of Swords, I think of grief, I think of heartbreak, as many people do. So I like the concept of jealousy, because with the Three of Swords, 3 is usually used as like an expansion, right? Like the number 3 signifies expanding and moving forward. So I feel like jealousy is oftentimes the thing that we ask ourselves. When we're feeling jealous, we can reflect back on that and say, you know, am I going to stay jealous or am I going to push past that? So I think jealousy can be a catalyst for our growth and for our mental growth. So I like that it has the term jealousy, because I can really work with that concept of not only are we going through this heartbreak, but what are we going to do about that? So as far as it goes with the image, the prominent symbols that stand out to me are like the sunrise or perhaps this sunset. I imagine that it's the sun setting, kind of showing the darkness of this emotion. This man right here is he has a chain on him, and then he also has this mallet. So it almost seems to me that he's about to break this chain that is attaching him to this stone so that he can be with this mother and the child won't be. So it's almost as if like the child is the one that is jealous, but also the man is the one that's jealous. So there's a cool like play on that for the Three of Swords, right? Because maybe we're also hurting other people that are hurting us. Maybe the way that we're feeling it is exactly similar to how other people are feeling, because in a Three of Swords moment, we oftentimes do feel that way, where like we're hurt, but other people could be hurt too. So there's kind of a reciprocation of jealousy that I think is really cool with this image. So we have repose for Four of Science. I get this card a lot, so this is Four of Swords. So I definitely know that the guidebook talks a lot about this card in regards to like taking a rest and how rest is necessary for the creative process. I'm not really sure if I get that from the image itself. And remember, this is curated artwork in the sense that all of this is from William Blake's original work, and then the creator of the deck applied the tarot meanings to the artwork. So it could be possible that like he just didn't have an image of someone sleeping, but maybe to me, I mean, if I was really trying to stretch this, and I have tried to stretch it before, like it's almost like he looks like to me like he's surfing. Like this is like waves of color and waves of water coming here, and he's having to like surf through that and try to reach above that to try to gain some mental clarity. So it's almost as if he's been weighed down so much by what's been going on that he needs to surf through it to get some mental clarity, which if you think about it, that's exactly what we're doing while we're sleeping, is that we're surfing through kind of like the overwhelm of our day and then reaching the outcome at the end. And at the outcome is new clarity. I love this card so much. So this is Five of Swords division, and I really think it's a great depiction because to me 5 oftentimes speaks to challenges and turning points. So when this card comes up, I think about the turning point of a situation, like a mental situation, and how I'm having to maybe turn the other cheek, or maybe I'm supposed to like get past this, but I'm supposed to divide from whatever has been holding me back. And I think that's a cool way to think about it too, because if we think about the Five of Swords, it's usually in regards to like someone bullying someone else. So you can choose to separate yourself from them. You can choose to like cut the ties, which I think is what's happening here in the image, and then divide yourself from other people that are bullying you. There's a lot that I can get here, both from like the number and also the keyword and also the image. So through this, you can see that he's caught up in this web, but you actually can't really see if the web is connected. Like it seems like one arm is connected to this side of the web and then one arm is connected to this side of the web. But up here, there's this like plant that's growing. So I think that's interesting. Like sometimes cutting ties can lead to new growth. So I like this card a lot. I think about him a lot. Passage, we have the Six of Science. He's really cool. And I think he speaks to moving past a situation, but doing so with intentionality. To me, this feels very cosmic. So you can see this person like floating in the air, and how like they're holding like the moon back and they're holding like the sun back, which I think is really interesting. We have all these squigglies here. We have what I believe is the sun here, and this man is just like pushing through time. So it almost seems like when you get this card, which is traditionally like the Six of Swords, which usually references like refuge, it's touching on the concept that this passage is meant for you. So you need to go through this passage to move to the next department. Like it's kind of karmic in that way. Lamentation. I know what the word lament means. Is it lamentation or lament? I don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm gonna refer to it as lamenting because I definitely know what that word means. So lamenting is like terrible, awful, wholehearted grief and mourning. And I think that this is a gorgeous depiction of the Seven of Swords, right? Because when we think of the typical dishonesty that comes with the Seven of Swords, oftentimes that does lead to people experiencing extreme forms of like lamenting and mourning and grieving and things like that. But from this image, this person is holding up their hands, and they're almost holding up their hands saying, stop, like, stop hurting me, stop being dishonest. But they're also holding up their hands because they're saying, like, I can push through this. And when we think about the seven, we think of seven being associated with like personal challenges and personal difficulties and overcoming that. I think it's really beautiful that we both have like the holding up the hands of stop, like stop hurting me with the Seven of Swords, but we also have that personal push. And you can see from this red here too, this individual is moving in that direction. We are going to push through whatever negative circumstance we're in to end up processing all of this emotional guilt and like grief. Like, we're not going to sit here and just sit in the fact someone has hurt us and has been dishonest. We're going to try to do something about it. So I think it's beautiful. It's different. It's beautiful. Restriction for Eight of Swords. I mean, it totally makes sense. The guy is crying. So he looks like he's really in an uncomfortable position. He's kind of chained down in this position where like I can feel like everything is just very grounded and just very stuck, almost as if he's kind of in a rut. And he has these tears coming from his eyes, his facial expression, he's definitely showing grief. But then we also have this explosion behind him. So it makes me wonder, like, is there an explosion behind him, like a fire? Like, is something catching on fire and he's sitting there and he is like crying about it because he can't move? He feels like he can't get out of like those negative circumstances. Or is this fire right here his brain shooting off ideas of how to escape? So I think there's an element of both of them in here, which makes like the William Blake so attractive to me, is that it does have a lot of meanings, kind of like what we saw in the Seven of Swords. So the Nine of Swords, I love this card. I love this card so much. So I really have so much to say about this card alone, because there are so many ways you can interpret them, and I think every time I've read with this deck, I've interpreted it differently. Okay, so the first interpretation that I have is that this is a family. So this is the dad, this is the mom, and then that's the baby. Okay, that's my first interpretation. And this woman is still grieving this man, and as this baby is flying by, like her child is exhibiting like pure joy, but she really can't touch in with like the child's joy because she's too busy mourning the man. Another, of course, terrible interpretation of this is that this is the baby himself. So even though this is like an adult figure instead of a child, it definitely looks like it's in the womb. So instead of being in the dirt, it looks like it's inside of a womb. And so this woman is grieving the loss of her child that she lost in the womb, but at the same time, like, this baby is like flying forward, so she can still feel that the spirit is with her. So there's a couple different ways that this can be read, but it definitely is like still touching on past grief. So it's less about the nightmares and the things that like haunt us in the night per se, and like terms of like horror and insomnia and things like that, and more about like, I guess, despair and hopelessness and feeling uncertain of how to move back because of things that have happened to us. The Nine of Swords to me typically is about like us worrying about the future and what could happen. This is still us like being deeply invested in what has happened to us before. So I think there's a little bit of a twist on it that I enjoy, but it's a really heartbreaking card. Like, this is one of the reasons that I love this deck, is because of this card. Defeat, 10 of Science. I love these like weird little faces here. So I think it's really cool that the snake, which typically represents knowledge, is what is being used to kill these individuals, with the 10 of Swords, and then the swords typically being associated with like the suit of intellect. Like, I think that's almost really interesting. Like, these people are literally being killed by their knowledge. They've learned too much, and so here they are, they're hanging upside down. I think that that's interesting. I like that we have suns here, because usually in the 10 of Swords there is that sunrise to let us know that like another day will come, I guess. Like, another day will come. But the fact that we have the suns here, it's almost as if like we've illuminated too much truth, and now that we know the truth, and we know the truth of the circumstances, we feel that sense of defeat, and we don't really have anywhere to go from that. It's interesting that we have 3 people here too, because usually this is like singular. I don't know how I would interpret that per se, but I like it. I think it's cool. So we have Angel of Science. I am going to get into the guidebook for this one to show you. So Angel is the page. So let's see where we're at. Let's pull this up. Okay. So Angel of Science, the Latin phrase that's listed here means who can demonstrate the foundation. And it refers to, let me make sure that I'm on camera. Yeah. Floating in the realm of pure or abstract thought, objective, unemotional, and unbiased thinking, mental speculation, exploration, meditation, lofty, possibly unreachable goals, scientific, intellectual, or ivory tower idealism, a brilliant insight bursting through, stimulus to organize or systemize, precision and clarity of vision, and then in the creative process, an intellectual vision or perfect insight inspires you to rise above yourself. It's actually really nice. So an intellectual vision or perfect insight inspires you to rise above yourself. I can see that because clearly we have all of that here. So this is you, and you're getting insight from above to be more and do better. So this deck less refers to individual characters in the court cards and more refers to energies, which is how I prefer to read court cards anyway. So I like that. The concept of like we have like this ideal that's floating above us. But then I also like the concept of like an ivory tower idealism. So we're never quite going to be able to reach it, even though this ideal is what inspires us. Floating in the realm of pure or abstract thought. That's actually really cool too. So there's a couple different ways that you can take this card from the guidebook. Okay, so we have the Child of Science. Look how cute he is. So this would be the Knight of Science. So while this guy is like floating in thought, right? And that makes sense because with our Page of Science, we are exposing ourselves to different ideas. We're brainstorming. We're kind of fascinated by new ideas. This guy is actually doing the work. So it looks like he's searching for truth or knowledge. You know, he's here and he's doing a lot of hardcore thinking, trying to figure out what plan he's going to implement next. And it seems from here like he has tried out several things before. So it's almost as if he's building on the information that he has. I think that's really cool. I think it depicts like curiosity. Yeah, he's a great Knight of Swords for me. He's doing the things. So it's like, once again, it's more of a classical interpretation of the swords, of the suit. So instead of like a Knight of Swords like charging forward and like being like really hasty and like getting quick into arguments, this is more like a knight that is engaging with thought-like activities. Like a knight that is doing things related to thoughts. He's trying out new ideas. All right, we have the Woman of Science. So while the knight seemed almost a little bit over it and a little bit bored, she seems to definitely have like a little bit more of the willingness to interact with this knowledge long term. So you can see that she's on the ground. I believe this is the queen. You could say that these people are the queen here, but I think she's the queen. She's the one that's doing this work to be able to see the stars. So this guy, he's planning out strategies. He's trying to try new things, but he's still like in the early stages. She's actually built that telescope and she's looking beyond herself. So in terms of what the guidebook says, seeking out pertinent data, methodical approach to solving a problem, looking within yourself for answers, upholding truth, counseling others, forming opinions based on observation and deduction, weighing abstract ideas, avoiding personal involvement, demonstrating principles, self-discipline, be cautious of becoming opinionated or over-professional. In the creative process, now is the time to research and gather information, get an overview, and make long-term plans and strategies. So I disagree with this guidebook saying avoiding personal involvement, because it looks to me that she is getting involved. So I disagree with that, but I don't know. I think it's interesting. I agree with the part that now is the time to make long-term plans. So I think it's interesting with this guy and then with her, both of them are like actually on the ground. So it's like we've taken this idea that is floating around in space. We've tried out new strategies. And then both with the queen and the king, we are actually using those strategies, and we are toying with these ideas and toying with these theories, and we're not afraid to get on the ground to make things happen. I do notice that he has these wings that are at his feet, and I think that's really interesting because essentially it reminds me of like the bird analogy of like the swords. You know, the swords are always associated with birds because it's air. So while the knight kind of was bored, the woman was working on it. He almost seems as if he's like, she has like a purpose to that work in the sense of she can see this telescope. I'm not really sure if I can see an immediate purpose to his work, which is interesting for the King of Swords. So I would say this kind of gives like a shadow meaning of like perfectionism and perhaps like remaining like separate from other people and society. But it definitely is talking about like scrutinizing your work. All right, guys, and crazy enough, that was the easy suit. It's going to be a long walkthrough. All right, Ace of Paintings. All right, Paintings is Pentacles. That's how we can remember it. P and P, Paintings, Pentacles. So I'm going to show you the thing. Ignore the fact it says water. I promise you, it is not water. I promise you, it is Pentacles. This is the Earth suit. So it really does take you a little while to figure that out. So that being said, this actually has it in the correct order. So painting, sciences, music, poetry, associated with pentacles, swords, cups, and wands. So look, I don't know why he said it right here, and then like he changed it up here. I have no idea. Okay, so this is pentacles. So we have generation for Ace of Pentacles. Love it, great. I oftentimes struggle with the meaning of like the Ace of Pentacles being like a gift or a new opportunity or something like that. I like to think of like the Ace of Pentacles almost as if a seed is germinating. So generation really works well for that. You can tell that she almost seems like she's a seed and she's germinating. So you have these people that are kind of floating around her, and it's almost like she's growing to be kind of angelic and angel-like they are. I just noticed this space for the first time in the border. Very cool. Wow, I wonder why it has that face. That's really interesting. Okay, Two of Pentacles. Ooh, I love this card so much. What a better depiction of balance, right? So we are really split between two separate things. Do we save ourselves or do we save others? You know, and I think sometimes that's what the Two of Pentacles is talking about, right? Most of the time it does refer to like work-life balance. So the work is helping others, but the life is like helping ourselves, trying to do things that feed our spirit and keep us alive. And not that that has to be a dichotomy in that, right? Like some of us do work as caretakers. I'm a caretaker in my job as a teacher. And I think that like sometimes caretaking can give us life itself, but sometimes it can drain us. And anyway, I just think it's a really beautiful depiction of that. Like I love, I can feel the intensity of the balance here. So we have Three of Pentacles for practice. That seems to make sense to me because we're still learning how to apply these tangible skills. Three of Pentacles usually refers to collaboration. So I see all of these individuals that are coming together and they're collaborating on this project to be able to create this beautiful artwork. So that actually works well for me. It's this concept of coming together, but then also like mastering your craft, because it takes a lot of effort to arrange yourself in this depiction. And it almost seems like someone has painted this. It almost seems like this is a depiction of this kind of painting. Four of Pentacles would be means. So that totally makes sense for me. I actually hate the traditional RWS meaning of like Four of Pentacles as like being miserly. I hate that. I think that Pentacles refers to resources, 4 refers to stability. So I think that it's like about setting like a firm foundation. So this guy definitely has the means to be able to support his family and then support all of these creatures around him. Like, you can tell he's very wealthy. And so I just wholeheartedly agree with this. Like, this works for me. 5 of Pentacles. I love this depiction of this. The man, you can tell, is definitely very poor. This woman, however, is willing to get down in the dirt with him. So it's almost as if she is the stained glass window in the traditional RWS. She's here to remind him that he has help. And even though he has all these people like pointing fingers at him, like, why are you poor? Like, why are you suffering? Why didn't you do more to help yourself? She's there to lend a compassionate ear. Very beautiful with the mountains too in the background, because it definitely could suggest that he's walked those mountains, he's walked those hard roads before, and that's why he's experiencing these hardships. Assistance, very cool. So he's pulling her out of the water. I prefer, when I'm reading 6 of Pentacles, you know, it can mean charity, it can mean like reciprocity, it could mean giving to others, receiving, things like that. I like to think of it in a more general kind of neutral way, as like power dynamics is typically the term that I think of. So it's more of like a topic that I think of than a keyword. And so I like the power dynamics between this, of like how he's giving her assistance. It's like a nod to the charity aspect, but at the same time, like, assistance seems a lot like less rooted in religion than charity does. So I think it's cool. And we have the sun rising here, so she's able to start a new day because of his help. It is interesting though that he's like naked. I don't know what's going on with that. Patience. So this is the 7 of Pentacles. This card I both love, and it also very much confuses me. The thing that I think of, right, is that with the 7 of Pentacles, we're oftentimes unsure if our efforts have meaning, if we are actually going to see the fruits of our labor. So I think that this is what this is a suggestion to. Like, I see this woman pulling the moon, so it's a suggestion to, we perhaps have to wait a calendar month in order to see the fruits of our labor actually come through. But then we also have these dead people down here, and it says Jerusalem. So I'm not 1000% sure what this means. Let me get out the guidebook for that one. And I've read the guidebook so many times, but it doesn't really explain the imagery. So it says, waiting for the situation to develop or ripen, waiting the results of your efforts, calling for material assistance or reinforcements, experiencing tests and trials in the process of manifestation, possible delays and slowdowns, feeling uncertain or apprehensive about a tangible issue, procrastination, assessing your resources, menstrual issues, PMS. I don't know where menstrual issues, PMS comes from, but knock it out, guys. Why not? You know, if I decide like, hey, I need to read with William Blake and I pull this card, maybe I definitely needed to be reminded of that. In the creative process, straining to speed things up only produces anxiety, so wait for things to unfold according to their own timing. So I do see that here. She's waiting for things to unfold. I'm not sure. I don't know. I'd like more insight on this. So if you know what's going on in the bottom half of this image, let me know. I would really like to hear your interpretations, because I've struggled with trying to figure out this card for a while. Discipline for 8 of Pentacles. We love it. This is one of my favorite keywords for 8 of Pentacles. Actually, I think that this is my keyword for the 8 of Pentacles, and it's from this deck that I have this. So this person is climbing this mountain. They do have to be very disciplined, but you can also see too, maybe perhaps this woman is a little bit sultry. Maybe she's a seductress. And so this man or this individual down here has to have discipline to not follow her up the cliff. He has to have self-control. So I see it like that. Or they could just be rock climbers and they need to have discipline to not fall into the ocean. Either way. But I love the word discipline for the 8 of Pentacles, because this, I think, is my second favorite minors card. My first favorite being the 2 of Pentacles, if you couldn't tell from my enthusiastic interpretation earlier. The 8 of Pentacles to me is all about like honing your craft, but it's almost as if your craft has a calling. So I like the concept of like work being a calling, and you have to have discipline to be able to follow that calling. I just like it. I like it. It's beautiful. Oh, what a beautiful card for 9 of Pentacles. So we have reached the culminating point. We are wrapped up in this flower with a loved one. We are kissing them underneath the sunlight. We have all of these like birds or angels or something up here like singing for approval. I just think it's very beautiful. I don't know what's going on with the fish, like why the big fish is eating the little fish. It definitely seems in contrast to the whole flower image. But fruition for Nine of Pentacles, love it. Great keyword, great image. And I also like that this has two people together, right? Because so oftentimes we see it as one person. I like that this person is getting to share their joy and their material resources with other individuals. We have delight. How beautiful. I think it is. So we definitely have the legacy aspect of this family, to the point where like we even have like this nymph right here, or like this fairy right here. We have these people like winding around the maypole here. We have like this like lake. We have these two individuals that are up on top, and you know, there even is like some kind of like trumpeteers in the air. It definitely gives Ten of Pentacles. Like there's a whole family here. I think it is really interesting though that it's called Delight, and this woman definitely has her hand on her nipple. I don't know why she does, but she does. So maybe that's, and she's also shirtless when the guy has clothes on. So maybe it's also like pointing out the fact too that she is the one that created all of these individuals, and it almost seems like her entire body is part of this cliffside. Right, and he's part of this mountain. So the man is the hard kind of edge of a mountain, whereas the woman is the one place that gives the nurturing and the substance and the civilization. It's a really cool image. I think there's a lot of detail here that you can interpret. So now we're to the Angel of Painting, and I will share the guidebook entry with you for this one. So visionary reverie, coalescing plans and agendas in your imagination, contemplation prior to action, making use of appropriate tools, getting an overview of the situation, particularly regarding its physical or material aspects, getting the feel of things in the creative process. Look for or contemplate a solid idea, practical point of view that can instigate a whole new direction in the work or your project. So once again, just like the other page, I feel like the Page of Pentacles here, that makes sense to me, because with the Page of Pentacles, you know, we need to get a, what did it say? Get a practical point of view, and we need to contemplate a solid idea. We need to get the feel of things. So this individual has this paper in their hand, and they're maybe making like a list of the tools that they need to be able to get the job done. So we're still early in the creative process of like making things, because remember, even though this has water on it, you know, we're paintings for pentacles, right? We have the Child of Pentacles, which would be Child of Painting. And according to this, we have some crazy guidebook meanings for this, but I'm going to tell you my interpretation first. So while this person is kind of thinking about what they're going to do, this person is getting out there and doing it, right? But with the Knight of Pentacles, I typically think of someone who like does without much thought. Like they are doing for the sake of doing, or they're doing for the sake of obligation, the sake of duty. This guy tends to be having a lot more fun, which is interesting because, like I said, this touches on the material realm. So according to the guidebook, this is what it means. You are on a roll. You are riding a wave of prosperity, a time to show your hand and reveal your innate powers, enjoying a position of material advantage. Charisma, hedonistic enjoyment, drug experimentation, surfing the internet, total absorption in your activities, trusting your body's wisdom to instincts, opening to new experiences. Now is the time to experiment with processes and materials, taking great pleasure in what you learn and create. All right, guys, drug experimentation, surfing the internet, hedonistic enjoyment. Why not? I feel like he channeled the message, like surfing the internet. Like he definitely saw that and he was like, yeah, we're surfing the internet. I think it's so crazy. But I can see how it's like, I can see how it makes sense. You're enjoying your body, right? You're getting out there and you're doing things. You're enjoying your body. You are experimenting with processes and materials. It does make sense for the Knight of Pentacles, right? Because the Knight hasn't perfected things yet. We're still experimenting with materials. And I guess in the case of that, the materials were the waves. We have the Queen of Pentacles. We love this. Now, this is a card I used to get a lot because this used to be what I considered to be my primary signifier. Now I see myself more of like a King of Cups, but the Queen of Cups comes up, the Queen of Pentacles comes up oftentimes for me. And I do not know if it's this woman or if it's this woman. And I think every time I read with this deck, it changes. So I'm going to see. It says practical and resourceful executive skills. Creative vision is operating on many levels. Recognition and tangible rewards may be at hand. Group activity or cooperative efforts, making use of appropriate technology. 6, supporting and acknowledging the contributions of others, fostering the arts, creative drives, loves of beauty, perceiving hidden values. In the creative process, your creative ideas are now taking tangible form, assisted by good use of your available resources and personnel. Yep, that works for me. So the Queen of Pentacles does know how to make use of her resources, so that totally tracks for me. She's making use of her network and also the physical resources. And then the King of Painting, of course, the King of Pentacles, y'all look at this lushness of what he has. So it definitely looks like he has taken a calm and kind of methodical approach. And so he's able to create this vast beauty. So while the other people, this person was thinking, this person was kind of doing, but albeit doing messily, she's really getting a lot of process done through her support system. This guy has mastered the art. And so he's gotten done what needs to get done, and he has created this beautiful mural around him. Beautiful. Alrighty, guys. So now we're to another P, but this one, of course, is not going to be Pentacles because we already did Pentacles. Poetry is the Wands. So this is the fire suit, and this is where it gets like super fun, like super, super fun. William Blake was not the most mentally stable guy. And I think between the poetry, which is the phrase on the card, as well as some of the depictions, I think that you'll see that he was touched with a little bit of, he calls it prophecy, but he was a little touched is what we are going to say. And I really appreciate the perspective of these cards in particular. This is my favorite suit in the deck. So inspiration calls Ace of Poetry, which is Ace of Wands, and we can see like this individual like folding herself down to this guy, and he has his quill and he's about to start writing. I come in self-annihilation to cast off the rotten rags of memory by inspiration, to cast aside from poetry all that is not inspiration. So I want to cast off the rotten rags of memory. I don't want to be held to my memory anymore. I want to receive what's coming to me. Don't just let me live in the past, but let me be open to this inspiration that's coming forward to me. Beautiful, gorgeous. And like she's unfolding to him. Ugh, like that really touches me. Individuality. Every man's wisdom is particular to his own individuality. I love this for Two of Wands particular, because I think Two of Wands typically shows like setting intentions and moving forward. But I think that we can also see it as two representing like a duality. So this individual is having to look at himself to kind of reconcile the difference between who he is versus who people interpret him to be. And you can see his foot is about to like start running. So he's not really liking what he's seeing, but at the same time, he has one foot that's like firmly planted. So maybe he does like what he sees. There's a sense here that's about like self-perception that I really enjoy, because I think that we have to understand that there's not a lot of movement in this realm. So this one definitely is more of like an oracle card meaning than I would say tarot. I don't know if I can really make that much of a connection between like this and like traditional RWS, but I love the hell out of this card and I get it a lot, so I'll take it. 3 of Poetry for 3 of Wands, and it says creativity. I must create a system or be enslaved by another man's. I will not reason and compare. My business is to create. Yes, William Blake, I love that shit. So this man is totally creating, and like the angels behind him are rejoicing. That's the story that I tell myself, but like he is waiting for that lightning strike to hit that book because he wants to create his own damn system. And I love that because I do see numerology as a big part of this deck, as a part of any deck. So with three, we're talking about expansion, we're talking about growth. So of course I have to create my own system, right? Like I'm not stuck at this point where I'm looking at myself anymore. Now I want to cast off those rotten rags of memory, like he said in the Ace, and I want to create my own system. But now we've gotten a little older, and after we've created our own little system, we've realized that we can create our own like structures around us too, and in those structures we find harmony. So for the 4 of Wands, we have this poem: love and harmony combine, and around our souls entwine, while thy branches mix with mine, and our roots together join. Beautiful. We have the swans here and these 2 individuals here. And you can see from their feet, they literally have their roots intertwining with their feet. This card means a lot to me because I don't think I've ever noticed the roots at the bottom. I love that. So beautiful. Love it. Oh, and like we also have like land and water there. I caught it. So we have 5 of Wands, strife. This is my favorite word for 5 of Wands, by the way. Thou art a man, God is no more, thy own humanity, learn to adore, for that is my spirit of life, awake, arise to spiritual strife. It almost is like he's saying here that like you're a man, God is no more than a man. You need to learn how to adore your own humanity, for that is the spirit of life. Awake, arise to spiritual strife. That's really interesting. The concept of like almost kind of dealing with like atheism here, or rather, I don't know what it would technically be called. What is the term for saying that like someone is saying God is no more than a man? I don't know. It's a spiritual strife. But even if you ignore the quote, this card is full of strife, and it's full of conflict and tension, and like we have the lightning strikes and this man upside down. It's very chaotic. It's a turning point for sure. Cooperation, 6 of poetry. Gods are visions of the eternal attributes or divine names, cooperating in the bliss of man, obeying his will, servants to the infinite and eternal of the human form. Ooh. Okay, so 6 of poetry, 6 of wands. So it's saying that gods are nothing more than visions, cooperating in the bliss of men, obeying his will. So essentially man creates gods. Okay, feisty William Blake. So if I were to pull this card, I would probably focus on cooperation, but I would think about the traditional 6 of wands too, because if you think about it with the traditional 6 of wands, it denotes victory, but it denotes victory means that you're being victorious over a group of people or over a person. So I think that this is an even like calmer way to say it. Instead of victory, we're saying cooperation. But then the quote itself like talks about victory because essentially like we as humans are victorious over the gods because we are the ones that create the gods, and we use the gods for our own purposes. It's a very deep deck. Love this card. So 7 of poetry, 7 of wands. It says, the times require that everyone should speak out boldly, and arts as well as arms are in the Senate. And it's boldness. And I love that. We need to be bold when we're fighting our own battles. And I like this because the times require. So it almost seems as if we're fighting this fight with the 7 of wands, but we're doing it for a reason. We're doing it for a purpose. So it's like a renewed sense of purpose and fighting spirit. We have a reason to do it. He's saying, go fight. You know, go get at it, girl. Swiftness. Time is of the mercy of eternity. Without time, swiftness, which is the swiftest of all things, all were eternal torment. So I had to move some of these lines around. So without time, swiftness, all would be eternal torment. Makes sense. If time didn't move quickly, we would be eternally tormented. Makes sense. I think there's like a deeper meaning there, but my English teacher brain is on break until I get back from Christmas holiday, so we'll leave it there. So swiftness for the 8 of wands, and that's a great word for 8 of wands. All right, this is where, like I said, you can start seeing that William Blake was a little bit touched if you can't see it already. So we have the 9 of wands. Powers. We were placed here by the We were placed here by the universal brotherhood and mercy, with powers fitted to circumscribe this dark satanic death. So it almost seems as if we've come into our powers here. Like this is kind of touching on like the fact that we can be connected to more. It almost gives me like the impression of the magician touched to what's above us and what's below us. We are in our power. And in the sense of that, when we think about the 9 of wands, the 9 of wands is someone that's had to fight like this really tremendous fight, and they're very tired, and they're kind of exhausted from being like resilient. So when I think about this deck, I think about how hard it is for us to fight those fights and to hold that power inside of ourselves. So there's a sense of like culmination to it, like we've reached the highest point of our power. And then with the 10 of wands, we're burdened by that power. We're burdened by prophecy. I love it. Gorgeous 10 of wands. And what is that word? Futurity. I promise I know how to speak. In the future, I prophetically see that the earth from sleep shall arise and seek for her maker meek, and the desert becomes a wild garden mild. So this is a prophecy that this person is receiving. So they've received their powers, which if you think about the wands, like that's what really the energy of the wands is. It's hot, it's quick, it makes sense to associate it with prophecy for me, because you're tuned into something that is a life force deeper than the everyday. I think that the wands is like the most spiritual suit. And through that tuned inness to the power, we've received this prophecy, but we don't really know where to go with it because it's become too much. All we can do is give these prophecies and then like get on our knees because we're burdened by that. All right, so Angel of Poetry. Let's actually check out the guidebook for this one, because I mean, like, y'all seeing what I'm seeing? Every time I show this deck and I'm like, this is not my favorite card. We're gonna read what it says in the guidebook, okay? Burst of imagination that requires action, feeling aroused by creative fire. Well, yeah, I can definitely see that. Profound inner realization, communication with spirit, freeing the creative forces within yourself, getting a glimpse of what is possible if you don't hold back, opening yourself to new experiences, to spontaneity and passion for truth, daring to be great. In the creative process, imaginative insights are transforming your work, making it into a receptacle of divine truth and spiritual artistry. All right, so we're opening ourselves up to new experiences. This is a very Page of Wands cards in the way of like, we're trying new things. We're feeling aroused by creative fire. Solid, dude. I mean, it does make sense to me. It just seems a little bit strange that the other angels are so detached, but yet this one is so attached. That's what I'm gonna say. That was a bad joke. I stand by that. Like, look at this. Like, it definitely takes an arrogant person, and I love a little bit of arrogance, to write this quote. I found them blind, but I taught them how to see. Child of poetry. Yes. So I don't know if this guy, like, is William supposed to be the knight of poetry? Is he supposed to be like the knight of fire? Is that what's happening here? I don't think I've ever noticed that we have William's name there. Interesting. I do have to consult the guidebook. So feelings of creative restlessness and artistic impulses. Something hot falls at your feet, sparks are flying, learning through the experience, taking risk, bending over backward in an effort to see the appropriate direction for self-development and creativity, looking for inspirational influences your environment. In the creative process, an inspirational breakthrough is at your feet. It's up to you to pick up the energy and make the most out of it. They keep talking about the feet. You're bending over backwards in the effort to see the appropriate direction for self-development and creativity. I can see that really well with like the Knight of Fire. Because when we're talking about the Knight of Fire, the Knight of Wands, we're talking about someone that is fire on fire, if we're seeing it from the RWS perspective. And I can see that that someone would be like just charging forward and trying to kind of feel this creative fire coming through them. And so they're kind of bending over backwards to make sense of like that hot energy that's surging forward. It works for me. But I love this concept. I find them blind and I taught them how to see. All right, teach me how to see. I love it. We have Woman of Poetry. So she's actually really beautiful. Essentially, the guidebook says for her that she radiates confidence, pride, and self-assurance. She's unafraid to promote herself and reach for what she really wants. So there's a sense of creative fulfillment here, mastery of expression. This is a great image for this. So if you can't see the quote, it says to go forth to the great harvest and vintage of the nations. To go forth to the great harvest and vintage of the nations. So we're going forward to receive our great harvest because we've expressed ourselves so expressionally. We are, engaging in creative self-fulfillment. It makes sense to me. She definitely has complete confidence in her abilities, and I love the fact that she is naked because there's so many naked women in this deck. Like, you had to put the naked woman on the Queen of Wands, and I know that that's not all she is, but like the Queen of Wands is a sexual creature, so include her in there. I really think it makes sense. I say sexual creature, but sexual woman. And then we have the Man of Poetry. And we're almost done with the suits. So the quote is, to justify the way of gods to man. And that would be the King of Wands. Yeah, he would think that he's justifying the ways of God to man. Totally makes sense. So if you can look at him, it almost seems like he's clearing out this fog. And when I think about the King of Wands, I think of someone who encourages others to see their vision. So they wholeheartedly believe in their vision so much that other people begin to see it too. So he's clearing the way for other people to see his vision. He's very authoritative. So you can tell that he is just like standing there with full authority, and he might possibly be rigid, but at the end of the day, like, he's getting shit done. And I'm seeing him seeing the whole project here as well. Love it. So we have the Ace of Cups. So the music is our last suit, and that is going to be the Ace of Cups before I show you all the majors. And the desire of man being infinite is the possession. The desire of man being infinite, the possession is infinite, and himself infinite. So I think that definitely speaks to the infinity of passion in the Ace of Music. Like, look how expressionate he looks. He really is kind of like surging forward, perhaps releasing emotions, kind of letting everything out. So it's kind of like he's like being swept up by this bird. I can see it. Ooh, Two of Cups, love it. And we have contraries. Without contraries, there is no progression. Attraction and repulsion, reason and energy, love and hate are necessary to human existence. Yes, I agree. So as someone who is in a long-term relationship, I love the concept of contraries. So without these differences, without these contradictions, we wouldn't really be able to progress in our relationship. It's the differences that me and my husband have that bring us together. And she's singing about that, you know, and he looks like he's looking at her, and like he's kind of floating in this land of thought, and she's playing with the music and the flowers are growing around him. It's a nice thought. Three of Cups, we love exuberance. Exuberance is beauty. That's all William Blake had to say. You know, we have these birds that are really happy here, but this angel is just filled with happiness, just absolutely bursting forth with that expansion of the three. We have Four of Cups, which would be amusing. And I wrote my happy songs every child may joy to hear. I like that a lot. So like instead of it being like hangover or like contemplation or things like that, we are participating in musing. We are musing what we're going to sing about so that everyone else can enjoy it. So we're taking a brief break from this exuberance and all of this outward energy to go within so that we can share our emotional knowledge with other people. And watch this man, because he comes up like multiple times in this suit. So I think that's really cool. So melancholy, and I'm actually going to put that guy out the side so we can see where he comes up. Melancholy for Five of Cups. Here lieth William Blake. Well, that is really sad. And it says, dust thou art. Yeah, that's what it says. Dust thou art. So you are dust. Whatever is born of mortal birth must be consumed within the earth to rise from generation free. Then what have I to do with thee? Lovely. Gorgeous. Then what have I to do with thee? So what do I have to do with you when I'm a mortal birth and I'm going to be consumed by the earth? My favorite six of Cups ever. We cannot experience pleasure but by means of others, Six of Cups. And it makes sense because when we're children, right, we are engaging in play with other people. Like six denotes harmony. So like what better experience shows harmony than being in pleasure from interacting with other people? Like you're in pleasure because you're in harmony. Seven of Cups. This world is all one continued vision of fancy or imagination. I love it, because what is tickling your fancy? Like what are you gonna choose? And I love all of these different like angels or nymphs or creature spirits coming out to interact with her. So she's deciding for herself, like, what is going to tickle my fancy? What kind of song am I going to write? What am I going to imagine from this? So all of these individuals are like there to inspire her. Eight of Cups. Clouded with discontent and brooding in their minds terrible things. Or brooding in their minds terrible things. So we have all of these nightmares that are behind us. This technically could have been like, I feel like the 9 of maybe swords, but like I said, it's not. Looks like a 9 of swords to me, like a traditional one, but it makes sense. Like we're feeling discontentment with everything that is going on in our mind, so we're choosing to leave. And it looks like this man, right, really is taking the chance to leave. While this woman is being held back and this man's being held back and that woman's being held back, this person looks like they're trekking forward with that stick, about to like go find new things. Happiness. Ooh, love it. He who binds himself a joy does the wing life destroy, but he who kisses the joy as it flies lives in eternity's sunrise. So we're supposed to engage in temporary joys and not bind ourselves to the joys as they come at us. And I like that. And like you can see with this man like balancing on this stick or branch, he probably will fall. So maybe that's talking about like the briefness of happiness in life, how there's always going to be like another shoe dropping, so we have to enjoy it while we can. 10 of Cups. Peace and plenty and domestic happiness is the source of sublime art. Yep. So when we are full of peace and plenty and domestic happiness, we get to create sublime art. Checks out to me. It looks like everyone's making music and everyone's happy. So we have the Angel of Music, and this is our last set of chords. In times of innocence and holy joy, the joyful shepherd stops his grateful song to hear the music of an angel's tongue. Makes sense for sure, because the Page of Cups would stop doing what he has to do. He would be the joyful shepherd. He would stop doing what he has to do and what he wants to do to sit down and listen to the song of an angel. So I think that the Page of Cups is someone that is deeply in tune with the music and the beauty around them. So this card makes a lot of sense to me. Knight of Cups, we love it. So the Knight of Cups is piping down the valley's wild piping songs of pleasant glee. So he is chasing his joy just like a Knight of Cups would, right? Like he is like dressed in whatever he wants. He's a little bit funny. He's doing whatever he wants and whatever like tickles his fancy. And he's playing his own song too. So he's doing more than just listening. He's making his own music. He's piping down the valley. Queen of Cups. Loud and more loud, the living music floats upon the air. This makes sense to me. She literally has her foot in the water because she's playing her harp or her lyre. She has all of these fairies and all of these things dancing around her. And if you can see, the water is rushing forward, so she's becoming one with that water. Okay, and here we go. So the guy who made the music for the children in the Four of Cups is now the King of Cups, and I get this card all the time. Music as it exists in old tunes or melodies is inspiration and cannot be surpassed. It is perfect and eternal. And when you think about like the King of Cups, you think of someone who plays on someone's emotions to be able to get the outcome that they want. That's more of the shadow side, but like you can do that in any capacity, right? Like as a teacher, I embody the King of Cups because I need to check in constantly with my students and like feel the pulse of the room in order to be able to have a productive outcome and in a productive learning environment. So I really do resonate with this, because what better way to meet someone on an emotional level than music? So he nails it for me. You know, here he is musing and he's come up with these songs for other people, and here he's like sitting by the beach. So instead of his music reaching just a few people, this is almost as if it's like representing in his mind like what he wants to happen. He wants his music to represent all and meet all, because music is inspiration. It can inspire people to act. All right, the courts are done. Now we have the Fool. Now, the messages that I shared with you for the minors, they all had like in the creative process kind of messages. Like they had the phrase as well as like how you would use these decks, these cards in the creative process. The majors don't have that. They only have like basically a description of the cards. So it has basically keywords, but not how you would use the card in the creative process. So I love the Fool so much. This is my favorite Fool card of all time. He is chasing this dog off the ledge into this alligator mouth. He's not paying attention to what he's doing. This is a very shadowy card. This is the card that convinced me that William Blake was familiar with tarot. I mean, come on, like, why not? Because, I mean, there's a guy, there's a cliff, there's a dog. And when we think about back to like Tarot de Marseille, they definitely have the dog and they definitely have the man. And if I'm wrong, excuse me. I'm sure I'll like correct myself later. But I mean, I don't know. It just makes sense. Like, this looks like it was made for tarot. And I love that like there's a like group of buildings behind here, because it's almost as if this man has turned his back on this group of buildings and he's just charging forward. Ooh, we have this card. I love this card. So as above, so below. We can definitely see that with this man here, as well as this man pointing to the sky. He has all of his tools around him. I love the fact this is in the shape of like a tent, because it's giving me this concept of like performance, as well as kind of the trickster energy that's associated with the magician. Makes sense. It tracks to me. We have like a bull down here. We have like a ram down here. I don't know what this guy is, but he's like all different kinds of creatures, kind of symbolizing like the different elements that man would use. We have air, we have water, we have fire, we have earth. So he's very locked into all of those elements. We have the High Priestess, known as Mystery. I like the fact that she's up in the front, but she also has like this man and this woman behind her, because it gives me this feeling that's a little bit different for the High Priestess. Usually when we think about her, she's all feminine knowledge. Here, we're at least nodding to her that she's not all feminine knowledge. She also understands the man's world too, but she chooses to kind of seclude herself with her knowledge in her own little room, in her own little space. We have like alligators pointing here. We have these angels that are bringing her treats. It's incredibly beautiful to me that like she sees all and she knows all, but she's not going to act in all. And I like that she's covered too. We have the Empress. Hello, what a beautiful Empress. I mean, this is so spot on. So we have the lilies and we have the roses, which I think is really beautiful. But like this woman with her 2 little children, the nakedness of it, the fact that they are one with nature. We have the Emperor. This is an amazing Emperor. So good. So good. So he is like tuned into the way that theories work and structures work. And he's here to kind of rain down structure on like this free flowing, hey, we're all naked in the garden. He's here to establish those structures for everyone. The Hierophant. So we have this man with his teaching up at the top, and then the 2 angels that are next to him. But I think this is interesting because they don't seem to have like the usual like men at the bottom. Like instead we have 2 angels that are sending this message downward, but it's still this concept of this person above you has more knowledge than you do, which is illustrated too by this box here. It's almost as if they're separate from society, but that information is going to be conveyed down to you this way. I like that we call it religion too, because I think of like the Hierophant as representing man-made structures. So I think that's cool. We have 6, which would be the Lover's knowledge. So this totally tracks here. We have, I believe it's Adam and Eve here. We have the tree in this back corner. So it looks like we're in the Garden of Eden. We have this snake winding around the border for temptation. So it's like, where are we going to go? Are we going to stay in this garden? Or are we going to leave? I love this card so much. This is one of the top cards that changed how I read tarot. This is the Chariot, which is experience. And I love this card for these individuals just like charging forth. Like no matter what, we are going to charge forth. So when I think of the Chariot, I think it's the first card in which the Fool is acting by himself, other than the Fool itself, right? Because in 2, he's learning from High Priestess, 3 from the Empress, 4 from the Emperor, and then we also have the Hierophant he learns from, and then he learns from his partner and the Lovers. This is the first card where the Fool is actually acting by himself. So he's getting life experience by going out there and moving forward and charging forth with determination. And I absolutely love that. I love that the box is so small, because it really shows that like we as people have a very small, limited point of view. Oh, we have assessment for justice. I like assessment a little bit more because justice to me is a man-made construct. It's a man-made idea. And so, you know, the whole concept of like actions being good and wrong is part of assessment. So it seems like it fits in that department, but in a little bit more of a neutral way. So I like the renaming of assessment. I don't know what he has in his hand. I think it's interesting that these scales are imbalanced because most of the time you see it balanced. I don't have much to say about him. He looks, I don't know. What do y'all think? Imagination for the Hermit. I love that there's so many different archways. So first off, we have this box. Well, we have this archway here. Then we have this box. Then we have another box. Then we have like another archway. So there's so many different layers that this hermit is like going down into. And he carries his own light as he's going through all of these different layers. So it's almost an exploration of yourself. Like you are digging deeper within yourself through introspection, but with you, you're bringing your light, which is your experiences and your optimism as you prod through. Beautiful. We have the 10 for Whirlwind. These colors remind me of the American flag, which is hilarious because, you know, I am American and United States has been quite, you know, through quite like a whirlwind. So I don't mind that I see the American flag here because it's like, okay, what's changing in America now? So I don't know. That's my instant interpretation of it. But whirlwind, sure. Yeah, like, I don't know if I can give you anything other than that I see the American flag. So we have Strength, which is usually 8, but in this deck it is 11. And we have renamed it into Energy. So I really like this because when I think of the Strength card, I think of the woman and the lion and how they're interacting with each other with like gentle strength, and they show respect to each other. So I like this concept of it here because it seems like all of these animals are respecting that they're all dangerous and that they could all like mess each other up, but they tend to be acknowledging that they're all equal. So man is equal to this bird, man is equal to this horse. So there's a balance of energy here that I find is really enjoyable. I read this kind of similarly to the Strength card in the way that like the woman is balancing with the tiger. So you need to like have the strength to kind of control your impulses and control that you're better than everyone else. But at the same time, like this is kind of outside the realm of like normal tarot. I see it as kind of an oracle card, honestly. We have Hanged Man, which is reversal. What a great depiction of that. I love that we have mushrooms down here because it's really illustrating to this man that humans aren't the only ones that build structures. Mushrooms communicate through their mycelium webs. So there's a lot that's going on in the dirt that like we can notice if we just flip our perspective. We have Transformation. Ooh, I love the hell out of this card. This is one of my favorite cards ever. So I like Death card anyway. But this man has died, or this person has died, and from their back they are gaining their wings. We have all of these individuals that are trying to like hold them back, but at the same time they're unable to, or these individuals have died because we can see their bodies right here. This perhaps is their spirit. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's beautiful. I love the colors. I love that you can interpret it in 2 different ways. Like these people are trying to hold this guy back, or these people have become dead bodies or dead spirits themselves. Dead spirits, that's an oxymoron. I love it. And like the spider here is on like a string, so like life is hanging by a string. We have Temperance. So this is my favorite card. So Temperance has been renamed Forgiveness. And I think that's really cool because if we think about it, Temperance is the card between death and the devil. So it's kind of that middle zone. And I think that forgiveness is that middle zone between like anger and contentedness. Like we have to be able to seek the forgiveness and to step into the waters of forgiveness in order to be content with that person again. So I like that a lot. I like the concept that we have like, I guess it's like this Jesus figure or like this angel figure in the middle. I'm not really sure what he is, but it's kind of like seeking outside of yourself. Like when we're hurt, we hold on to that pain, but we need to seek outside of ourselves to see that there's more outside of us. Similarly to the Death card, after we die, we have to see what's beyond us to understand that like it's not just our physical death, more is to come. We have the Devil, known as Error. I think that's actually really cool. So instead of attachment or obsession or devil, like we've stripped away that term and now we're calling it error, because an error is something that can be corrected. So I like that the personal autonomy comes back to the reader in that sense. And we have all of these people that have experienced it. We have lightning. He's pretty self-explanatory. The tower has fallen. There's like some kind of creature above here, some sort of devil figure above there that is in control of all this chaos. But I do like the concept of like this all being in a box. So when we're going through it, it feels very clustered and very hard to get through. But we do need to recognize that sometimes that tower is kind of self-contained. I like it. I like this deck if you can't tell. So we have the star. I think this is really cool. Yeah, really cool. Like it touches on like imagination up here, which is cool because you look up to the stars and you imagine what's possible. We have like these lovers that are here, this woman that is dancing, this child, and this woman that are sleeping here. I don't know, it does give a sense of like optimism and hope and kind of a sense of whimsy to it. Like it feels very whimsical to me. And like what's beyond the surface. Like sometimes we need to look what's beyond the surface, what's beyond the everyday, to be able to see that there's a whole nother hidden layer that can bring us joy. So even though there are people fighting up here, I can see a guy with a sword. There's still a lot of really good things on the bottom layer. The moon. So while we have this happy little family, there are people with daggers that are willing to stab them. So once again, look beyond the surface. But unlike this one where there's happy things beyond the surface, look here and notice that there are negative things beyond the surface waiting. And you know, we have it's almost nighttime too, so the illusions are about to fall. We have the sun. To me, this looks like a reunion of spirits. So it looks to me like this is a whole family that is rejoining a family member here. Everyone is kind of up here and they are floating and they are soaring, and there's a lot of love and a lot of light in this card. The fruits are in bloom. Incredibly joyous and full of a lot of positive energy. Resurrection, this is one, or not resurrection, judgment. It is showing a resurrection, yes, but is the judgment card also known as liberty. I love the renaming of this because it should suggest that our body is an area of confinement and that the true essence of ourselves is stripped away when we move past that body. And we can find liberty when we've reached that point of death or that point of resurrection. But this woman is being resurrected into this beautiful butterfly shape. So what's coming next? And we have all of these people up here waiting for her. And there are all of these people down here that are still stuck behind. So it's an intense feeling of like transformation and metamorphosis and like what's coming next for me. We have the world. I don't know if there's anything ever to say about the world. I need to probably deep dive into the world because I'm like, yep, there's the world. Looks complete to me. And then we have an extra card, which is eternity, which is the double zeros. So after we've reached past the world, like we're now in the eternal land. All right, guys. So I think I'm going to shuffle it really well and then ask what can we learn from this deck. All right, so I'm going to give it a good shuffle. And it's going to be, what can I learn from this deck? Or rather, what is this deck here to teach me? Okay. And here are the backs, by the way. I don't think I showed them earlier. So 2 things it is here to teach me, and they're both court cards. Look at that. So I see the child of science. So we had just talked about how the child of science is the person that is playing with the thought, right? So he's looking a little bit bored, but he's playing with the thought. He's interacting with the thought. As the knight, he is diving forward into those ideas. And then the angel of music is the page of cups. And she is the one that stops her song to listen to the angel. So I think that's really beautiful. So we have the juxtaposition here of like, this is a deck that's meant to challenge me to play with new ideas and play with new thoughts. But at the same time, this is a deck that takes my breath away from its sheer beauty and from its just like application of this gorgeous music. So yeah, I will take it. I love it. Then we also have the Woman of Music up at the top. Loud and more loud, the living music floats upon the air. I do feel like a little bit of a Queen of Cups when I'm reading with this deck. I feel like I am a part of something that's larger than myself. Okay, so I'm going to call it quits on that one. Thank you for spending this time with me. I really just wanted to share a deck that I love and I treasure.